Welcome back to another edition of History in Your Own Backyard. Today we're in Moores Hill, Indiana at the Sibbett Moore Funeral Home, built in 1908. Come on in, we'll show you around. I'm Satoli, and I'm here with Charlie and Janet Moore of the Sibbett Moore Funeral Home in Moores Hill. Charlie, can you tell us a little bit about the history of the funeral home?
Well, the funeral home originates back before the turn of the century. The undertaking establishment and the accompanying livery stable were owned and operated by Mr. Abraham. The horse-drawn hearse and horses used were housed in the livery. At that time, most embalmings and funerals were held in the home of the deceased. Mr. Abraham later became partners with Mr. Ulrich in the funeral business, which was known as Abraham and Ulrich Undertaking. The business was owned next by Mr. Ulrich's son, Donald, who became the sole owner. He also operated a coal company in Moores Hill. About 1942, Walter E. Sibbett, an employee of the Ulrich business, formed a partnership with Donald Ulrich in both the businesses, which became known as Ulrich and Sibbett Undertaking and Ulrich and Sibbett Coal Company. Donald Ulrich, about the same time, purchased the Dillsboro funeral business and managed the Dillsboro funeral home, while Mr. Sibbett managed the Moores Hill funeral business. In 1945, Walter and his wife Anna Sibbett purchased what is the present-day funeral home. The house was built in 1908 as a personal residence of the president of Moores Hill College. At that time, Mr. Sibbett began an extensive restoration of the home to its original grandeur. Before the restoration was completed, Mr. Sibbett received word that the former president had passed away in California, and it was his wish to have his funeral held in the residence he had built. Many residents of Moores Hill came together to help the Sibbetts prepare the new funeral home for its first funeral. About 1965, Ulrich and Sibbett Funeral Home separated, and the Moores Hill Funeral Home became Sibbett Funeral Home. The firm was operated by Walter and Anna Sibbett with the help of Walter's sister Mabel until Walter's death in 1983. At that time, the funeral business was purchased by Charles and Janet Moore, us, who owned and operated the Laws Carmore Funeral Home in neighboring Milan. Shortly after this, we changed the name to Sibbett Moore Funeral Home, and it continues to serve the Moores Hill and surrounding areas today.
So Charlie, tell us how you got started in this business.
Well, my mother thought I was a mental case, I think, was how I got started. There was a funeral home about a block away from where I lived as a youngster, and we'd see them line cars up for funeral processions and, have funerals, people going in and out, and we watched this, me and a few of the kids. Mm-hmm. Well, anyhow, I started wanting to mimic this and be a funeral director. So we started looking for dead animals to bury. We got shoe boxes. We used a lot of Raid, and we started having funerals. And so I'd cut out little funeral flags out of paper and put a big cross on them and whatnot, and make funeral flags. And we'd line the kids' tricycles up, and we'd tape those onto the handlebars or whatever, and we'd have a funeral procession. And we'd bury the dead cat or dead animal, whatever we had, bird or whatever we could find, and we'd have a funeral for it. And if we wanted to have another funeral in a day or two and we couldn't find another animal, we'd dig up the previous one and reuse it. So anyway, my mother said, yes, he's got a mental problem for sure, and so she ran into our local undertaker uptown one day when she was shopping or whatever, and said, I got a boy that wants to be a funeral director, I think. And he said, well, send him up. I'll use a boy after school. Didn't tell him I was 9 years old. He thought he was getting a high school boy, and he got a little shrink. But anyway, I worked there at the funeral home all through high school and drove back and forth to Indianapolis to go to Mortuary College and work there on the side. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of how it all started.
Interesting.
So
I like that. So, well, thanks for your time.
Okay, yeah.
Appreciate it.
Nice talking to you.
Thanks for watching. I'm Satoli with History in Your Own Backyard. Remember, travel slowly and stop often.